Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 7. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, back for a sort of special edition of the podcast, but also a part of our regular rotation. By no surprise, fans wanted us to do a recap episode of the Steelers' Week 2 17-7 win over the Kansas City Chiefs on Saturday night. So we're going to just recap this game, still have our regular schedule throughout the week. But Dave, Steelers 2-0 in the season, a lot of good to talk about. I'm pretty happy with the performance I saw Saturday.
Yeah, if only it was 2-0 on the season. 2-0 on the preseason there, but absolutely. Look, I don't know about you though. You go back to the first preseason game against the Buccaneers a week ago Friday, and then you fast forward to the kind of the whole entire first half of this one, a much sloppier, I don't want to say, well, maybe less enjoyable because it was so sloppy, but not the quality of football, at least early on in the game this week that we saw last week from the Steelers. Most definitely. Now, there was an hour delay in kickoff there, which caused a kind of an interruption with the way they like to warm up. And overall, as a fan, you can say, well, I'm glad that happened to give them a sort of another obstacle to overcome. However, I think this team had enough of an obstacle this past week with the passing of Daryl Drake and all, and his passing being heavy on their minds and stuff like that. I wasn't a fan to see that delay. Any other time, that delay probably wouldn't have bothered me, but the fact, just one more thing, and knowing that you had kind of the pregame tribute to Drake coming, I was disappointed to see that. But really some sloppy football, really throughout the game, I thought. Now, I have seen the game, obviously, the one time live through and one other time in pieces, if you will. So normally I like to have these things watched about 3 times by the first time we talk about it. But I think we've both probably seen enough where we can give some good analysis of what happened.
I hope so. Let's find out. Let's just dive right into this thing. And I think it's still smart to go position by position is the best way for us to frame it, especially since we haven't gotten to really rewatch it as much as we might like. But let's go with the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph got to start. As you said, kind of a tough start for this team. I think consecutive 3-and-outs to begin, though I wouldn't really classify that as being largely on Rudolph's fault. Obviously some drops, some penalties, fumbles. I mean, just kind of a mess of things to begin, but Rudolph really picked it up. I think he went on the one drive, the scoring drive. He went, I think, 7 of 8 for 77 yards, and then the catch with the Jalen Samuels touchdown. I thought Rudolph, this is my opinion, and I know that Tomlin downplayed it afterwards, but I kind of just filed that under predictable things Tomlin says. This is the first time all summer, all preseason, all camp, that Mason Rudolph began to create separation for that number 2 job.
Yeah, was it as much him creating separation as Dobbs not keeping up?
A little both, I guess. But I thought Rudolph played well. It wasn't that, Dobbs just played. We'll get to Dobbs in a second. I didn't think he played terribly, but I thought Rudolph played really well and started showing some space in front of Dobbs.
And Mike Tomlin was quick to point out, especially at halftime there, that the receivers really weren't doing Dobbs any favors. And remember, there was the one play drive, I guess, where came after the turnover where he hits Moncrief, and Moncrief gets the ball ripped out of him. So that's obviously messes up your rhythm there. And then I'm trying to remember if it was the drive before or the drive after that. You had Rudolph did a great job of kind of sitting in the pocket and then getting the ball, pushing the ball downfield to a really a wide open Xavier Grimble, and he takes his his eyes off the ball, and it's just a clean drop right there, and that really messed up the rhythm. And I think it's hard to tell. Sometimes you wish you had the all 22 even in the preseason here, but I think on the very next throw, Juju's kind of coming out of a break there. It looks like he slips a little bit, And then it looks like the ball does hit him in the hands, but it looks like a defensive player also might have got a hand in there. But I viewed that as kind of a catchable ball as well. That possibly Juju should have had. And then fast forward to the scoring drive that Rudolph did a good job of extending the play out to his right, stepped around the defender, then stepped up into a throw. You could kind of tell he was wanting Eli Rogers to come back to the football, I think. And if Eli isn't so concerned about staying maybe in the end zone for a possible touchdown, if he works back towards his quarterback there, just on a line, then that's going to be a completion there, I think. Instead, Eli kind of just half-heartedly works back to the football there, and because Mason doesn't have the Brett Favre cannon, the defensive backs are able to get up on that thing, and then of course that thing's broken up as well too. So outside of maybe not being aware of some time and some pressure, the internal clock on one of those sacks, or on the sack that he got caught from behind before the scoring drive there happened. I thought it was an okay performance. Not great, but I thought top to bottom, especially when compared to Dobbs, he had the better showing.
See, I thought it was even better than okay. I thought it was, I don't want to get into semantics of good versus great versus pretty good, but I thought it was a really solid performance. And I thought one of the traits that I saw from him that I haven't seen before was mobility. And that's something I don't usually associate with Mason Rudolph, but mobility in the pocket, even the throw to Eli, him being able to hang in there, kind of evade the rush and hold on to the very last second, are all things that I haven't seen, certainly not last year, and even really didn't see against Tampa Bay. A little bit, there was the one play, I guess, that was an incompletion on the left side where he showed some of those traits too. But I'm going to post a clip of the completion to Grimble, not the drop, but the third down completion, where Snell kind of missed the protection a little bit, just got a piece of the blitzing DB, and you'll see Rudolph take a slide step to his left to buy enough time to make that throw to Grimble. So, we talk about mobility, usually think about Josh Dobbs or quarterbacks that can run outside the pocket and scramble and all that, but I think mobility within the pocket is the biggest attribute a quarterback needs to have when we talk about mobility. Someone like Tom Brady is one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league, not because he's fleet of foot, but because he's so good at being able to take the right steps and slide in the pocket and create space. And I thought Rudolph did a really nice job of that. So I was impressed overall by the command of things. And then once his offense got going and in a groove, I thought Rudolph took off.
Yeah, and look, he's got great rapport, obviously, with James Washington. From all the time they spent together, and that sideline pass over there that James Washington goes up and gets that one, where only he's going to catch that. And then of course the third down conversion on the scoring drive there over the middle. You could tell those two have worked together a little bit. And as you said, I believe in that same scoring drive, the completion to Grimble over the middle. That ball seemed to be on the money as well too. Two of those early incompletions that we already talked about. The drop by Grimble, definitely not on him. The one to Juju, kind of questionable or not. But yeah, top to bottom, when you work out the catchable throws and the getting past the lack of rhythm because of the quick change of possession there on the fumble by Moncrief. Yeah, it was a fine performance there, and he does seem a lot more comfortable in the pocket, and he said as much after the game about him feeling more comfortable going through his progressions and all. And as you mentioned, the mobility, him, and we saw some of these things at Oklahoma State, so it's not overly surprising. It's just him able to do it now at the NFL level with that speed factor. You'd like to see his internal clock be a little bit better, I think, but not a bad showing at all.
Now let's turn to Josh Dobbs, and I don't think Dobbs had a terrible game Saturday night. I don't, and I don't think you can argue that. But Josh Dobbs had the same game that he's always had that got him drafted coming out of Tennessee. He's got a good arm. He's got good mobility. I don't think his decision-making is poor. I think he's a good leader, but that accuracy, Dave, it really hurts, and he doesn't have it, especially on the short stuff, the gimme throws. It's a habitual problem, and to me, that's the biggest and most compelling reason why Rudolph will take the backup job and not Josh Dobbs.
When we talked recently about, man, in college, why his completion percentage was so bad. Now, granted, his wide receivers did not help him out in college. He had a lot of drops, especially in those final 2 years there. But on the shorter intermediate stuff, especially to, kind of over the middle, and the running back sleeking out of the backfield, he wasn't very accurate. It's like he has a hard time taking something off of his fastball, I think, sometimes, and man, you go back and you look especially at the end zone view of that interception, you got to hit that.
I mean, and he even admitted it to his credit. Even just flat out admitted he's got to hit it.
Yeah, I mean, that underneath drag route there, and I mean, if he puts that on Deontay Johnson, that's probably a touchdown there. So now he starts off with a long and correct me if I'm wrong, that looked like a very similar route from Washington as we saw in the first game there.
Almost identical. I'm going to do a film room on that later in the week. It was same bunch set, same stem. Yeah, pretty similar.
Right, and you start off with a 40-yard reception. At least I had the feeling that did Mason do enough in his time, because looks like Dobbs is getting off to a better start here. Now, obviously that first drive of Dobbs stalled, and then then you had the interception in the game, and to Dobbs' credit, at least he got on his horse and hawked that one down there. But very very inconsistent showing by Dobbs, and really kind of all the things came across my mind that you had tweeted out during training camp there. The not hitting the shorter stuff, the sailing the football, good play, bad play, kind of thing. Those bad plays, especially those that end in turnovers, will get you killed.
If he just had even almost average accuracy in ball placement, this guy would not only be in the conversation to be the number 2 somewhere or in Pittsburgh, but be a starter in this league. But it's that one trait that you got to have that's so hard to fix. And it's hard to identify the exact reason why. I'm sure it's mostly mechanical. That's the number one reason why accuracy for quarterbacks is poor. I think part of it's with his front foot not being pointed in the right direction, but there could be a litany of things: hips, shoulders, just with general weight transfer. I mean, I'm not an expert when it comes to this stuff, but I mean, the guy had some impressive throws. I got the big completion to Washington, which I thought was still a little underthrown, not as bad as last week, but still could have led Washington a little bit better. The throw to Eli over the middle was fantastic, and he made some great plays with his feet too and showed some toughness. But I just go back to that word scattershot, and I can go through the last 2 years of the Oakland game, training camp, and tonight or last night. I mean, I could pick out a dozen plays where that accuracy is just not NFL caliber, and that's disappointing.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not arguing that Rudolph is ahead in this thing, and I don't blame, and that's the way we thought it was going to go, right? Or hoping that was going to go. That
do you consider the battle over?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to me to see if Tomlin will quote unquote kind of stop the fight, if you will, just in case. Because, I mean, let's face it, Rudolph's not 28 links out ahead,
Right.
I mean, what happened?
I don't think we'll stop the fight.
And I'm not suggesting he does, but it will be interesting to see how he does handle. Because look, this next preseason game, Roethlisberger's obviously going to start. We don't know how long he's going to play. Is it going to be a full first half, and then him come out of the half? Is it only going to be a first half? Is it going to be about 4 series, regardless of how long? Is it going to be a set number play? We just don't know. And over the years, we've kind of seen all of that. So it's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen there. Now, obviously, I think we both think that Rudolph has the best shot of following Roethlisberger into that game. But how long? I mean, whoever you think is your number 2 at this time, I think you got to get him a lot of playing time. In these last 2 games, especially if it's Rudolph. But we'll see how to handle it. And the thing is do you do you give Duck Hodges any time in this fourth one? I mean, in this third one here, when you're trying to get, well, I guess what I'm insinuating is there any chance that we see a rotation of Roethlisberger, Rudolph, and then Hodges in this third preseason game?
That's possible. I hadn't really given it much thought, but now that you say that, it makes sense. I'm sure Steeler fans are going, yes, yes, yes. Let's see that. I don't know. It'll be pretty telling. Maybe I think it'll be pretty telling the way that Tomlin divvies up the quarterbacks for this game. That'll reflect kind of how they're actually running. Is that fair to say? This will kind of be a true depth chart.
Well, look, I mean, if there was a time, if there's a time to reward Hodges, who has admittedly looked good now. He's still playing, he's still playing with those furniture movers, though. We can both agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm. But you only can play against who you're playing against.
Right. It's not your fault. So, I mean, and what I'm saying is if there was ever a time to reward him, it would be in this third preseason game.
Mm-hmm. What is your take on Hodges' chances now? Because I know that you just haven't seen him as much because obviously, you haven't been in training camp, but have you come off of your stance about you don't really see a path for Hodges? Because the guy, again, played well. And that mentality to chuck it deep and take the chance and to air it out, I mean, that's pretty uncommon for a rookie quarterback in his situation. But this dude is just going to chuck it. And he's got a live arm, and the dude makes plays.
If I did not know, if this was any other team and I just turned it on the TV and someone told me that this was the third-string quarterback, I would say, okay, yeah, it looks like a great third-string quarterback.
Okay. How do you apply that to this situation? My question is, do you see a path to him sticking around in any capacity by the time week one happens?
Man, I still think it's tough unless you deal Dobbs. I mean, I still think it's tough unless you deal Dobbs.
Here's where I'm at. I consider with absolute certainty Devlin Hodges is one of the top 63 players on your team right now. So I think worst case scenario for Hodges, you keep Dobbs on your 53, likely as a number 3, but you put Hodges on the practice squad. And I know that playing time, he's not going to get any reps, but I'm just not in the business of cutting good players outright. And there's always a chance about him getting poached or whatever. I get that. You deal with that when you deal with it later in the season. But I'm not interested in cutting Hodges outright. I'm not going to give Hodges all the time I've given him in camp and in preseason reps that have been taken away from Rudolph and Dobbs to Hodges. Him answer those challenges and then cut him anyway. That just seems totally counterproductive to everything this team's done.
Well, here's the thing. Not that it should matter contractually, but Dobbs is now in his third year, and next year would be his last year of his rookie deal. And basically you control Hodges now for technically the next
3 years?
3 years, because he would be in exclusive rights after 2 and then a restricted after 3. So it runs you on up, through the same time period that you have Rudolph, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at it in those terms.
Right.
So.
I mean, you shouldn't, but I'm just saying there's one other factor. Look, you need to keep the guy that's the best number 3 quarterback.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, I'm just talking about putting at least Hodges on the practice squad, even if he doesn't beat out Dobbs, because I'm not letting this guy go for nothing. He's one of the top 63 players on this team by far. He's higher than that probably.
Yeah, just to me, it just seems like just a waste of a practice squad position, though.
Keeping a good player is never a waste of a practice squad position in my eyes.
Yeah, well, I mean,
even though I know the situation.
If he's that good, if it's that close, Alex, then you keep him and you cut Dobbs or you trade Dobbs. But I mean, realistically, what are they going to get for Dobbs right now, based on the way he's played?
Well, I mean, there's been some moments. I don't think you're going to trade him, though, because what player gets traded that doesn't have really any, or at least any good NFL tape, like actual regular season experience? Look at the players that Steelers have traded, and I've thought about this some more lately, like Sammy Coates, Ross Cockrell, Brad Wing, guys the Steelers have traded for, Will Cox, Vance McDonald, like all guys that have NFL resumes and pretty extensive ones. Dobbs has 12 career passes and an ugly Raiders game. Like I don't think you're going to get anything for Dobbs, especially in a league where half the NFL carries just 2 quarterbacks anyways.
Well, that's the thing too, is how many teams are once again going to carry 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah. about half the league. And now you just have Philadelphia. I thought about Philadelphia for dogs, but now they signed Josh McCown. That probably takes them out of any potential equation.
Right.
So, but again, I'm just saying worst case scenario. My broader point I want to make is I am finding a way to have Devlin Hodges on my team in some capacity for week 1, either practice squad or supplanting Dobbs as the number 3. And this will go down to probably the 4th preseason game against Carolina, the way it did for Dobbs last year to unseat Landry Jones. But I'm not cutting Devlin Hodges outright. He's at worst going to get signed to my practice squad if I was Kevin Colbert.
What needs to happen for him for you to keep Hodges over Dobbs?
That's a good question. I guess just continue to see Hodges be able to work situational football and just make sure that this dude's legit and he's not going to have that terrible game. And I don't think it's going to happen. It may not be as sparkling as some of the stuff we've seen so far, but I just want to make sure that I just want to give Hodges as much exposure or learn as much about him as possible and make sure that how he's playing now is how he's going to continue to play, that it stays consistent.
What if you play Rudolph in this? Okay, what if in this next game you play, because it's going to be so hard to get in, all these guys snaps in this 3rd preseason game. So let's say you go with Roethlisberger through to halftime. I mean, do you want your next guy up to play the rest of the game?
No, I'm gonna play at least 3 quarterbacks against the Titans, Ben, and then 2 more.
All right, so I here's what I guess I'm getting at. I think we'll get an idea, a clue, maybe, because if you are serious about keeping Hodges, you're going to try to get him some time in this 3rd preseason game. I think, if maybe you get into this finale and you let Hodges have the whole thing,
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, if Hodges doesn't play against the Titans, I don't know for sure if that means he's not going to be kept. I think it may just be the numbers thing. But yeah, then you would definitely play Hodges a ton against Carolina.
Boy, if they, it certainly is going to look bad. Look, I mean, you got to keep the better guy. But boy, if they have to move on from Dobbs after 2 years, after going back, I don't need to tell you who was there when Dobbs was taken, right?
Oh, you missed George Kittle. Yeah. Oh, I know. But hey, you found a good player, and there's worse reasons to cut up a guy than having a really good player that you found as a diamond in the rough.
Look, it's a good problem to have, and it's for those that every year want to jump on the 4th string quarterback and make him their guy. This was the right year to do it.
Yep, absolutely was. Hodges is legit. Okay, Dave, let's move on to the running backs now. James Conner got the start, played more than what I expected. Maybe that was just due to the fact that the offense was stuck in the mud for the first 2 or 3 series. And then you saw some of Jalen Samuels and some of Benny Snell. Thought all 3 guys did well. Samuels showed some of that burst and speed we hope to see after dropping some weight this offseason. And Benny Snell was his Benny Snell stuff. Oh, God, I really butchered that one. His Benny Snell self. And he got a couple of special teams tackles and ran hard, and I thought just played well.
Yeah, 7 carries, though, for 16 yards. He obviously hasn't had what was his long – what did he have, 2 5-yard runs in the game against the Buccaneers last week? And last night I think he had a long of 7 there. Looks like we don't have the all 22 on the line just to see what was there or wasn't there for him. So it's kind of hard to give good analysis on the offensive line and the running backs and all like that. Look, James Conner, got knocked around. The biggest takeaway that I take away from that game was James Conner got in there and got knocked around a little bit. 6 carries for 28 yards. Had a 7-yard long in that game and had an incredible catch. Boy, between the legs there, thought for sure that one was gonna go incomplete or bounce up into the air, but made a nice grab on that for his 1 catch for 6 yards. Pass protection wise, I thought those top backs did fine in the game there. Snell, you'd like to see a little bit more as a runner there. And once again, it'd be nice if we had some all 22 to examine there. He hasn't exactly lit the world on fire, and he did leave the game, according to Mike Tomlin, or didn't finish or didn't didn't play probably as long as maybe they wanted to take a look at him because of a groin injury. So we'll have to see what happens there. Look, the biggest takeaway here is I think we weren't going to see Snell much, if any, at the start of the regular season, right? I mean, that was kind of a given outside of maybe some special teams, which it looks like he can play. So, in order for him to get a helmet right out of chute, he's going to have to play on special teams. It looks like he can do that and not be a liability. Obviously, you're probably not going to make him a core player in that, although he has done that so far during the preseason. We'll have to see, if he's able to continue playing these last two preseason games and what kind of special teams role he's asked to carry continuing on, and B, can he make some progress as far as being a productive ball carrier, which we've yet to see him really kind of break one per se there. But Connor, did well. Obviously, Samuels on that walk-in touchdown of 14 yards. I mean, that doesn't get much easier than that when you had that kind of blocking around the left side like that. And 4 carries, 26 yards. That means the other 3 went for 12 yards. Didn't he have one early that lost yardage? I can't remember. But regardless, yeah, I mean, Edmonds ran hard. The pass protection that Edmonds had at one point I thought was fine. And as you mentioned, I think earlier in the podcast there, Snell had got just enough on one of the pass protections that he had. I think that was on the what throw was that? Was that the Dobbs?
The Grimble, the Grimble, third down completion from Rudolph.
The Rudolph to Grimble throw there. So, yeah, and once again, hard to analyze being as how we don't have the end zone view of it.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything that you said. But Snell embracing special teams, you have to love that. Certainly something he's probably never had to do in his football career before, but a role he'll have to carry as the number 3 running back. I see the scoop is basically the same. I assume that you agree. Your top 3 of Connor, Samuel, Snell, and then Trey Edmonds on the practice squad. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, the only question now is, can Edmonds be that kind of player that regardless Danny Smith bangs the table for? All right, because let's assume that you don't have Ola for week 1, but he's got to be on your 53-man roster. Okay, but you know that you're not going to have him. Let's say week 1 and maybe even week 2. All right, and that's obviously worst case scenario there. We don't obviously, and we're not going to know the severity or the real timetable on him anyway. But and let's say what I'm getting at is here, is there a possibility that Edmonds be kept primarily for his special teams ability and not necessarily the position that he plays? In other words, could he be player number 53?
If he's kept, he's absolutely kept because of that special teams value. I don't think the Danny injury has anything to do with that, because you would just activate the linebacker that would be inactive, probably a UG3. We'll talk about him a little bit later. The biggest way I could see Edmonds make it is if Jordan Dangerfield is cut, because Dangerfield's been your up back for the punt team, and Edmonds has also worked there as well, and they can throw new guys in there. It's a critical position, but it's obviously one that can be taught fairly quickly. That would be Edmonds' best path, is if Dangerfield isn't kept for some reason, and then Edmonds can make it and be the PP on the punt team.
But it's not like it's a 0% chance, right?
It's not a 0% chance, but I don't think the Danny injury has any impact on needing special teams guys or Edmonds' chances of making this team.
Yeah, I guess my point being is the only way that I could see a potential spot for Edmonds, but it's special. It's only because Danny Smith's banging the table for it.
Yeah, I think they like him. I don't think they like him enough to keep him as a number 4, but if they keep 8 offensive linemen, then the door opens.
At worst, Edmonds is practice squad, I think.
Yeah, he's going to be on this team in some capacity. I think it's just much more likely practice squad than it is 53. And the injury, of course, can change things either before the season or during the season, the way it did last year. They got him the call up. Let's go to tight ends. We'll probably get through that pretty quickly because there isn't a whole lot to note there. Really, I guess the large question is, are we really getting to the point, because Zach Gentry, Christian Scott-Williamson did not play, and we don't have a great evaluation on either of those guys. Are they just going to bring somebody in at this point? Is that the way it feels like it's going?
Well, that's why it's felt like it should go,
Yeah.
right? For since the draft, really, because look, I mean, you hope Gentry, whatever's ailing Gentry, we think it's a chest injury. He did not play. It doesn't. Obviously sound serious at this point. We hope he can get back on the field this next week. As bad as the depth is, and then you come out and look. I mean, I'm not worried about Vance McDonald, but it was uncomfortable seeing him fumble his first touch of the year there, and then followed up by Grimble with a bad drop, in the game there, and then knowing that there's really nothing on the 53-man roster outside of that. And we've already talked about Christian Scotland Williams. I mean, let's be honest here. The odds of CSW making this 53 aren't great at all. And, they would lose the practice squad, eligible spot if that happened and all like that. So realistically, CSW's headed back to the practice squad again. Gentry, if he doesn't make the 53, you got to carry two tight ends on your practice squad. I mean, I suppose you could, and you got a 5th round draft pick on them, so that would probably be the way it went anyway. But I have a feeling that personally, I have a feeling that they're still headed toward keeping Gentry right now, unless they can find a very nice upgrade for a minimum price here. But I mean, as we've said several times, if they make a move, which history says they will, it'll probably be the tight end position.
Yeah, if they keep one guy that's on the roster now, it's going to be Gentry over Scotty, just because Scotty hasn't played. He's got 5 snaps this preseason. He's not been available, unfortunately. But I think they do look for somebody, and if they do bring somebody in, then yeah, I mean, I think you have to keep. You're keeping Scotty on the practice squad because you have the spot, and I think you're going to have to keep Gentry too. I think they like him. They're not going to cut him outright, so it'll probably be Gentry and CSW on the practice squad. Plus, CSW is the exempt spot, so you're carrying 2 tight ends, but one of them is exempt, and I think you can make it work.
All right, so I mean, look, like you said, it was good to see Grimble recover and make that catch down the field. But boy, how different would the flow of the game had been had he caught the first one? That's
a good point. Yeah, good point. And Kevin Rader, Trevor Wood, thanks for playing.
Oh man, Rader, two holding calls last night. I mean, yikes. And then I'm not even sure did Mickey even get in the game? I don't think he did.
He was dressed. I'm not sure if he actually logged a snap. I'll have to go back and check. But I didn't see him. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I didn't see him either.
Enough about the tight ends because that group was pretty poor. Receivers, a lot to talk about there. A pretty good group overall. James Washington continues to ascend. I can't find my words today. Carrying over what he did week 1 into week 2. Deontay Johnson gets his first game action, has his first touchdown. Deontay Spencer turns some heads. What's your impression of this group?
Boy, it's good to see Washington follow up that good first week performance with another good week, right? I mean, I'm going to nickname him Man Hands. I mean, I have to, because he's got some lobster breakers that he's carrying around with him, and you saw that particularly on the sideline throw this time here, that high throw that he went up and just snatched right out of the air there. One thing that we wanted to see coming into this preseason too was him be able to get downfield and make catches downfield. He now has done that in back-to-back preseason games, so that's good to see. What's left to see out of him now, other than to carry it over into the regular season?
Yeah, just consistency. Maybe some more work on the shorter intermediate stuff. That we had that great throw. It was a third and 20, I think, over the middle between 4 defenders, and he felt the zone well and got space, made the catch, even got a tiny bit of yak. But yeah, the biggest thing for him was his ability to win vertically. That was the number one challenge for him, and in back-to-back weeks, he's done that. And they were on, I think, almost identical plays. I'll have a film room a little bit later in the week on it, but reduce split, bunch set, outside stem, then plant your foot, get upfield, stack the corner, find the ball, make the catch, complete the play, and that's what he did against Tampa and did against Kansas City. So the only caveat is what I said last week, that this time last year we're talking about how good of a preseason James Washington's having, and it didn't carry over. But obviously, being a second-year player, losing some weight, just feeling like he's got more confidence, he's more comfortable, all good reasons to indicate that he's going to be able to translate this preseason to the regular season.
Yeah, and moving kind of forward with the other wide receivers. Is Dante Moncrief still dealing with a bad finger? Maybe could that have played a part in that ball getting ripped out last night?
Nah, he just got a hold on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, just got to hold on to the ball. And I think he was pulled out of the game after that. Did he even play a snap after that? I can't remember if he did or not. How many snaps did I guess I should look at that real quick. How many snaps he played?
It might have been after that. I don't know if that was coincidence or not. I mean,
eight snaps.
Yeah.
For Moncrief there. Look, I mean the main guy that we wanted to see last night showed up, and especially on the offensive side of the ball, and that was Deontay Johnson, the rookie third round pick out of Toledo. We saw a lot of good things from him, especially look. I don't know what you thought about the supposed pass interference call.
Terrible.
Horrible, man, horrible. I just don't see how that's not overturned. And just to be clear, that ended up being a booth, on an inside 2-minute challenge there. Not something that even though Tomlin should have challenged it if given the opportunity to. And we heard what, Tomlin really had no comment on it after the game because you could tell he was disgusted. That's not how that's supposed to work. If you ask me, I thought it was just a brutal call there. I thought it was just two guys hand fighting and him working back to kind of a back shoulder there, So I'm not going to ding him for that. And then, on the actual touchdown that he had there, what a great job on the out and up there of selling it. Underneath a good release, a good sell, a good squat, before he breaks into that, and then turns it upfield. And I think even the most, the best thing to take about away from that touchdown was him being able to work through or work through the initial contact, around and then over the top and then stack that and then find the football on top of it because the football was a little bit kind of underthrown that he had to work back to and then had to make kind of the diving catch on the end zone. And in all fairness, though, I don't know how – didn't it look like the ball hit the ground on that one?
Yeah, it definitely did. The question was, did he secure it before the ball hit the ground? It was pretty close, but I'm happy he wasn't robbed of a second touchdown. I still thought his ability to track the football and make that kind of play was pretty impressive.
Right, and the fact that he can give you that kind of route, was and like I said, work through the contact was the biggest thing in that. Was the biggest aspect or the biggest positive I think that I took away from that. In total, 3 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, the other catch probably should have went his way as well too. But as far as an offensive first showing with him, do you remember the 2 incomplete ones? Do they count that one? That was the penalty on that. I'm pretty sure that's just a no play on that one. But I'm trying to recall the 2 that he didn't catch in the game.
Yeah, they're not coming to mind right now. We'll have to get that for next podcast.
But the other aspect of special teams play, that's it's not going to happen. I mean, you remember me talking about during the run up to during the offseason after the draft happened about him bobbling all those punts and kickoffs there at Toledo, mostly kickoffs, I think, that he did at Toledo, and the bobbles there. He had that muff in that game. You just can't have that, and it's just hard to see them having any kind of confidence in him by the start of the season. Now, will they eventually try to keep working with him toward, being maybe that guy? Yes, but he's not there yet.
No, he's not. He's not going to be your starting return guy, kicks or punts for week 1, and I'm more than okay with that. One guy that's trying to throw his name into the ring about getting work in the return game is Deontay Spencer, who really had a strong game against the Chiefs, and I'll have to go back and check. I think he's made, he's probably forced 6 or 7 missed tackles just in the return game alone over these last 2 games, and it feels like he always makes the first guy miss on kicks and punts. I know that roster room is crowded, and he's obviously battling Switzer, but I think he's off to a nice start, especially after last night's performance.
Yeah, it's just going to be so tough for him. I mean, it's just such a tough path, and we knew that right from the get-go. It was going to be tough, for him to get a roster spot. I still think he's going to have to break one here. You know.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I agree. And Tomlin was pretty quick to shut down the idea of Spencer moving up a depth chart or anything.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the right call. I mean, it's so hard for him, with him being primarily a slot receiver on top of he's got to make even more of an impact there, and he's not a guy that you're going to put out there on coverage teams or anything like that. So we said right from the get go, he's got to be this year's Stephon Logan, and he's not yet this year's Stephon Logan.
No, but I do like what I've seen. I mean, I think it is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, look, him being able to sidestep on a few of those punts, make, like as you said, make that first guy miss. That's impressive. But is it enough yet? No.
No, it's not enough. He's gonna have to pull a Rosie Nix and make a play in the preseason finale, where this team's forced to keep him. But he's not there yet. But off to a good start. Anything else with the receivers today?
Was hoping to see a little bit more out of Johnny Holton, but kind of, I mean, not much to write about there.
Nope. Yep. Same. Pretty quiet for the rest of the group. Devin Jones, Trey Griffey.
And I will have to go back and look and see how much work he got on special teams and the impact he made. Straight out, just like Spencer has to make this roster as a return man, I think Holton primarily has to make this thing because Danny Smith says he makes this thing.
Yep, I agree 100%. And he's, like Spencer, not there yet.
Not there yet.
Let's move to the offensive line. I don't have a whole lot to note. Some of the starters did play. I was a little surprised Shimon Foster played. I was wrong about that. Thought they would sit him out. So they had Villanueva, Foster, and then Filer played. Filer kicked in the right guard, had a core for at right tackle, and B.J. Finney at center. Thought the starting offensive line played well, but we'll have to kind of go back to the tape to get a better gauge for that. Thought Zach Banner seemed to struggle more this time than against the Bucks, but I'll have to go back to the tape again to get a better evaluation.
Yeah, he looks better on right side than he does left side, right?
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, good point.
And Chukwuma Okorafor, you would have hoped he'd have been a little bit further along than right now,
Yeah, I mean, I know that sack that he allowed, it wasn't the worst. That was the guy went up the arc pretty good. But yeah, like I said, this right tackle battle is no longer a battle, and I thought it would be a lot more competitive than what it was.
And I think last night they just wanted I think they thought that Banner was deserving to get a look at. I think they're a little bit questioning right now who's still going to be their swing tackle. I think both Banner and Okorafor are both going to be on this 53. Okorafor obviously is going to be on this 53. We think Banner has got himself in the best position to be on this 53, but I think last night they wanted to take a good look at Banner to see if he could be the swing.
I don't know about that. I think they're just moving guys around just to get experience there. Okorafor is going to get the hat over Banner, assuming the Banner does make it. I think he's going to be the swing guy, and then even just for nothing else, to be that sixth offensive lineman, a little bit more mobility for Okorafor than Banner. I know Banner actually did check in as an eligible late last night, but I think Okorafor has played there before, a little more mobile, and I think I like that a little bit better than Banner.
Is there any way that Banner does not make this 53?
Well, I mean, you asked me last week, would I be shocked if Banner or Fred Johnson didn't make it, and I wanted to take it a notch below that. I think they have very good odds to make it, but I wouldn't be shocked by it the way I would, some other bigger name. I still expect Zach Banner to make it. Fred Johnson might be a little more questionable. I still think Johnson probably will, but I think Banner's going to be weekly inactive if he does make it.
Yeah, I think, and Johnson too, maybe, if he makes it. And I thought Johnson played. I haven't honed in on it yet and sat there and gone play by play and watched Johnson in this game from last night. But I like to see him on the move, and we got to see him at left guard. So they're really looking at his position flexibility right now, and that's usually a good sign when that happens, right? So as we sit right now, it looks like it's going to be the 9 that we've kind of been talking about for a while here now. So no reason to think otherwise. I think the only point, and Patrick Morris got a long run at center last night. I think and Derwin Gray. Did you get to watch much of Derwin Gray at right guard last night?
I tried to watch him live the best I could. The little bit that I was able to hone in on, I thought looked good, but I'll have to go back and watch him. But he's clearly ahead of J.C. Hassenauer, which I think should have happened from the get-go. I'm happy he got a long list of snaps to go off instead of the 6 he had in the opener.
Yeah, and really, there's no sense talking about any other offensive lineman, I don't think, past that, right?
Not of note unless something pops up on the tape. But yeah, that's the Hawkins seemed okay. I don't know. Hawkins is still behind Banner in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Let's move over to the defense now, and I don't have a whole lot for the defensive line, so I'll let you talk about the group if you want to, if you have anything of note. Yeah, really, no one stuck out super positively or negatively along the D line for me.
I just thought that the early on, the whole front seemingly played well together, and especially we'll talk about the outside linebackers here in a little bit here. Hayward and Tuitt got lathered up a little bit. That was good to see. Hargrave obviously got a few more snaps. Bugs initially, right when he came in the game, I thought he had a couple of tackles there, but I think he was kind of quiet after that. So it'll be interesting to go pick through that tape. After he settled into the game a little bit, to see how he did. Mondo, I think he's the odds-on favorite right now to have a practice squad spot moving forward here. And Tyson was, the rest of it was kind of quiet, though.
Yeah, Tuitt played, got his first action for the year. I just see this group as the same as before. You have your 6. I don't think there's any debate about that, and I still think Mondo's probably your favorite. I guess it's still an open spot. You don't want to hand out these practice squad jobs here after just two weeks of the preseason. But that to me, when I do my 53-man roster prediction later in the week, it's going to be the same along the defensive line as it was last week.
Yeah, and, the 17 snaps for Mondo again. I mean, that they're definitely taking a hard look at him and giving him seeing what he can do. I think, didn't they work him on like a wing spot again last night on one of the snaps? So, I mean, he's getting some special teams.
What spot?
One of the punt wings, or was that last week? Or was it in practice? I thought I heard Tunch talking about it this past week about Mondo getting some.
Maybe on field goal block. I don't think about.
Maybe it was field goal block that Tunch was saying. But regardless, not that we're expecting to focus in on Mondo and the special teams, but just the aspect that they're looking at him in all areas gives you a feeling. And then mixed in along with him playing another 17 snaps last night. I really think that they think that he has something with him potentially as a practice squad spot.
Zach Banner's on the field goal block team, by the way. That made me laugh. He was out there at the end of the half.
Hey, he's you got that kind of size, right? Yep. I mean, him and Dan McCullers, we've seen Dan get his mitts on one or two so far during his career, so why not?
Yeah, hey, I'm all for it this time of year. All right, Dave, let's talk about those outside linebackers. And obviously the lines were pretty thin. No Ola Adeni with that meniscus tear. Again, we're going to talk to Dr. Melanie Friedlander here in a little bit to get her thoughts on the injury situation. No Sutton Smith. That really disappointed me. I thought he was going to play in some capacity. I was definitely wrong about that. So you had Tuzar Skipper, who continued to impress, a fumble recovery, a sack, some pressures, just the power, the heavy hands that he has. He delivers some blows on these tackles that stun these guys and push these dudes back.
Yeah, boy, it was disappointing that Sutton didn't play, right?
He's fighting for a practice. We're not talking 53 at all. We're talking, can he get a practice squad spot?
I mean, he's gonna have. He would really have to light it up the last 2 games in special teams to make it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough to do, most definitely. Now, definitely something there with Tuzar Skipper, but in my players to watch, he was obviously I think one of the 7 again this week, coming off of the game that he had last week. I wrote in there that he's got to get going on special teams and he's got to make an impact. Well, he only played 3 special team snaps, Alex.
Is that because he played so much on defense, though, I wonder? How many snaps did he play on defense?
39, but still, he should have got some burn.
Yeah, he's not good. He's like Ola. He's not a guy that's great in space. He's definitely a good edge guy, but everything else is a little questionable. Yeah, but he's still going to make the practice squad regardless. So
right, he should. But I guess what I'm trying to set people up for is, we'll see what happens. A lot can happen in these final 2 games. He could get nothing but special teams work, in these last 2 games here. But man, if you keep an Ola on the 53, right? It's going to be hard to carve out a spot for Tuzar Skipper right now. I mean,
Yeah.
especially
Good
with
point.
him not being, not seemingly being a special teams guy just yet here. It's going to be hard. And I know people are going to say, oh, there's no way he clears waivers. He'll clear waivers, folks.
Yep. I'm doing this backwards here, but also let's circle back to the starters. Watt and Dupree played well. I thought Watt, especially against most.
He looked
Dupree had 2 sacks. Yeah, good stuff.
Watt looked healthy, didn't he?
He looked healthy. He looked like TJ Watt. He's going to have, again, I think 15 sacks is within the realm of possibility this year.
And Dupree, a couple sacks in that game in a little different ways. One I think working to the inside there, one with a little bit of hand usage, right? So, that's good to see there. I was screaming. I just wanted him out of the game.
Yeah, they did play a while, didn't they?
Well, let's see how much did they Watt played 30. They both played 36 snaps.
Wow.
If I would have told you both were going to play 36 snaps during our podcast the other day, you would have told me I was crazy. Well,
I wouldn't have a house.
Crazy.
I would have bet my house they would have played 36 snaps. Maybe that was because the lines were thin and they missed the game before, but yeah, they played a lot.
And how much are they going to play in this third preseason game now?
A half, probably half.
So yikes! I mean, look, I'm glad they got them laddered up. I'm glad they both were productive, and I'm glad they both got out of the game uninjured there. So make the sign of the cross. Bless yourself there.
Absolutely. All right, Dave. Anything else with the outside linebackers? I think that was really the only guys to talk about.
No, Chiclo showed up. Chiclo played 21 snaps. It seemed like he played less than that defensively. Personally, but Mike Tomlin said chest injury of some sort on him after the game. But the 2 guys that he did mention were Chicolo and Snell, and he did kind of frame that as being non-serious with both those guys. So keep your fingers crossed there.
Another guy that seems to be pretty non-serious, Devin Bush, as we move to the inside linebackers. Tomlin did tell us what the injury is. It's apparently a shoulder injury. Seemed to be pretty precautionary, the reason why he was held out. Vince Williams was still held out, working his way back from that hamstring injury. He should play against the Titans, but you had Mark Barron, Tyler Medikevich start. Gilbert got some work with the second team. How many snaps did Gilbert III play? Should have played a lot. 35, maybe 40.
41.
Hey, all right.
And 9 special team snaps. So yeah, disappointing that I was geared up, ready to see Bush get after it again in this game. And okay, I understand precautionary. It was bad enough that he couldn't play. So just hopefully that clears up, and Mike Tomlin seems to think that he'll be good to go in this next game against the Titans a week from Sunday. I mean, if he doesn't suit up a week from today, then it's time to be concerned there, and hopefully he'll be back at practice and all this next week. Should be. Mike Tomlin didn't seem too terrible.
Yeah, we won't get to know, unfortunately, with camp over, or unless he gets some beat reporter. I don't know how that's going to work for preseason stuff. Mark Barron seemed to have a better game than Tampa Bay game.
He really did, especially being able to cover those guys out of the backfield and all. That early kind of out and up. He was able to go under to get there, and then work the work the up part of the route there, and then I thought one other time down the field he did some good things there. So probably it's only second preseason game, but I think a better performance than what he had in that opener against the Buccaneers, and mainly got dinged in that opener because missed tackle or 2 in that game there. But better game there. Matakevich is what he is. We knew that going in. He can play downhill great, It's just when you ask him to cover guys and trail guys like tight ends down the field, you can't expect him to win those.
Right.
He's going to be your special teams guy. It's still, I know a lot of people are angry, but it's hard to see him not making this team on special teams. And heck, he could end up even be the special teams captain. But
probably will be.
By the time the dust settles here, Gilbert, I thought did some nice things, especially in some coverage things downfield there as well. And Spillane, Spillane is another one of those guys that at times can move well in space, but sometimes when you get him one-on-one, it's just not going to work out there. So I think the pecking order is what it's been. It's obviously Williams, it's Barron, it's Bush, and then it's Matakevich. The only question is can Gilbert crack it as a ninth linebacker? And the only way he's going to do so is if he gives you anything on special teams. And once again, I'm not convinced that he's that guy yet.
I think he can be. I think he's got the skill set in terms of the athleticism, the hand use, the effort. With Matakevich, though, I mean, the dude does not miss a tackle. I mean, this guy gets guys on the ground in a physical, violent way, and that's what makes him a really effective special teamer. He's got to make this team. It's a huge mistake if he's cut, and I don't really think there's any reasonable chance that he's going to get released.
Let me ask you, okay? You keep Benny Snell, okay? Which is obvious. I mean, barring him having to go to the IR or anything like that. Going back to the conversation we had a little bit earlier, all right? And we're assuming that they keep Matakevich as a inside linebacker. Who are you keeping, Gilbert or Edmonds? The running back Edmonds.
Yeah. No, I figured you weren't asking me Gilbert or Terrell Edmonds. I'm keeping Gilbert III.
Why?
Well, I mean, it's a good. All right, it's a fair point. I have to think about it some more. I just think that
who's the better athlete? Who's the better special teams player, though?
I mean, the resume. I want to see more from Gilbert. We're talking about Edmonds, who has more of a resume than UG3. That's a good point. I guess is Edmonds going to be active on game day then? Because he got to be active.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're if Danny Smith's keeping him, it's because he's going to dress.
Yeah, all right. You're making me think about this a little bit. I could see that.
I mean, you get where I'm coming from here, right? Because I mean, you're not going to have Ola. Let's assume that you don't have Ola for week 1. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, you're probably going to need Snell to dress. On special teams. So then, and this goes back to what I was kind of framing this thing early in the podcast here. I mean, don't look at Gilbert. Ignore the positions.
Sure.
Because neither one's going to see the field as a running back or an inside linebacker. So then who becomes the better special teamer?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that battle's. I want to look more at Gilbert, I guess. There would be, and I know that it's unlikely, but the concern about if you release Gilbert and he gets claimed because everyone likes fast athletic. Everyone likes.
Stop it.
You were talking about someone getting claimed last week. I forget who you were talking
No,
about.
it ain't gonna happen.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, what's a bigger commodity, a big running back or a fast athletic linebacker, off-ball linebacker? It's the latter of the two. I don't know. I mean, you're making me think about it some. I'm giving you credit there. I don't know. I think I'll let the preseason kind of tell that story.
And look, I'm not down on Gilbert. Don't get me wrong. I think, most definitely, at worst, he should be practice squad. And I mean, there is a path for him to be on this 53 as well too. I don't think it's a slam dunk with him.
Sure.
At this point. So
Edmonds is a good special teams player. That's definitely his call.
Right. Where I'm sitting right now, I think it could come down. I mean, will Gilbert be on my next 53? Yeah. I mean, and he was on my last 53. Look, he's way out in front of Sutton Smith. The only way Sutton Smith, and it's been this way since he was drafted. The only way he's going to crash this party is by crashing on special teams on these next 2 weeks. But I mean, just so far behind right now, it's hard to think him being able to make up that ground. So, assuming he is out of the picture, I think we're in a situation right now where your 53rd player could potentially be a Gilbert, a Trey Edmonds, or even a guy like Marcus Allen as a fifth safety. I think you just or Johnny Holton. Ignore the position when we get down that low.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I mean, Gilbert's on a lap around the track and Sutton Smith's at the starting line, just chilling. So I mean, yeah, it's not even a battle right now. It's a good point though. I mean, something for me to chew on. All right, Dave, let's talk cornerbacks. They're healthy. Brian Allen, Artie Burns playing. I thought, good performance from Burns. Allen seemed to struggle a little bit. What's your evaluation of that group?
I think it is what I've had it for a while now. I don't see it changing right now. It was good to see obviously Nelson get in there and play some more. See Artie get out there and do things on the left side, which is kind of something we haven't seen a lot of. And then, it is what it is. I don't see Brian Allen. It's going to take an injury, I think, for Brian Allen to make this thing at this point. And as you said, has he done enough, and does he have the eligibility to make it to practice squad moving forward? I don't know. I thought Lane did a little bit better job all the way around in this game, especially on special teams. He has a potential to be a gunner, Mm-hmm. Him and Artie both. I think Artie was out there gunning as well, too. So, as a whole, I thought that group represented himself pretty good last night.
I think it's about the same in terms of – I think it is the same in terms of roster spots. Yeah, Lane was better, which is no surprise. Second game, playing farther back in the lines, playing against more backups and to his level of competition.
What'd you see happen with Hilton on a couple of those down-the-hill throws?
Yeah, I think they were playing like two-man, and you're playing trail techniques. You're playing inside hip of the receiver and kind of trailing it a little bit. But, yeah, Hilton was just beat. On the one, he was looking back at the quarterback. I don't know if he thought the safety was going to carry it. I don't think the safety was supposed to carry it. I thought Hilton was supposed to take that vertical. He did play some free safety, though. Actually played a good chunk of free safety, which was interesting for him. But, yeah, not Hilton's best game. I think Lane's going to be your inactive, though, to start the year. I think Burns is definitely going to get the hat over Justin Lane.
Yeah, I do as well, too. And if so, then that means Burns probably going to be a gunner for you, or at least one of the gunners, right?
Yeah, probably. I haven't thought about exactly how it's going to go.
And what'd you make about Hilton playing some free safety?
It was a little – I know that they've talked about it before, and Hilton's done it in practice, and he's played free safety at Ole Miss and all that. But to play a lot of that was interesting and kind of robbed Cam Kelly of some snaps, which wasn't my favorite thing in the world. Hilton played well there, had the breakup. I thought he played better at free safety last night than they did at slot corner. But
he had a nice click and close on one of those.
Is that the breakup you're talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. He's a big hitter for sure. I think Hilton still had a good camp overall. Yesterday was just kind of not a great game from at slot corner, but I still think he's going to be your starting nickel corner.
And initially, I thought the forced fumble was Artie because he was the first one in on that. But obviously, and in fact, the NFL gave Artie credit initially for the forced fumble there. But it's obvious when you go back and look. Good job by Terrell Edmonds of knocking that ball out from behind. And look, they were able to get the ball on the ground a couple of times, right? So that was good to see.
It was like 3 or 4. Allen had a forced fumble. Edmonds had his forced fumble. P.J. Locke forced a fumble that skipped out of bounds. I think Hilton. Yeah, it was kind of a bad snap, right. But still Hilton did, and Tuzar recovered it. So that's 4 right there. This team, and I have a film room for this that I wanted to go to a little bit later in the week. This team repped the heck out of, turnover, takeaway circuit in practice. On the jugs machine. Coaches always preaching rip the ball out, players responding in kind. So I think you're seeing the way that this team has practiced and tweaked their mentality a bit to focus more on turnovers and takeaways, which is so critical. And you're seeing that translate in the early stages of the preseason. So good stuff there. Nice performance from Terrell Edmonds. I'm really excited for Edmonds this year, creating turnovers. He's going to have a big season.
We need some interceptions.
Yeah, just need takeaways. I don't care if they're forced fumbles or intercepted. Just the safety tandem of Davis and Edmonds had 2 turnovers forced last year, a pick each. Not good enough, not even close. So I want that number to be 5 or 6 at least combined. The higher the better, obviously, but much higher than 2 because that's not acceptable.
Marcus Allen had a nice hit.
Yeah, talk about a guy that needed to make a play. Now, the concern is he didn't check into that game until I think midway through the fourth quarter, which is very bad news for him, but he needed to make a play. He did. He's still certainly battling very hard, though, for a roster spot. He's got to make a move.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be special teams, I think, at this point. He did have 2 special teams tackles last night of the 7 that are tabulated as far as the primary tackles went. It was Gilbert had 1. Marcus Allen had 2. What else do I have here?
Nix had 1.
Snell had 1. Nix had 1. Washington had 1. That's a good feather in your eye. Johnny Holton had 1. So,
nice.
All the guys that we're kind of talking about, and obviously the Edmund, the other Edmonds, I don't think had 1 in that game. Who had the assist in that? Oh, Canada had him an assist in that assisted tackle in that game as well too. And all the guys we just talked about potentially being that 53rd guy, Gilbert. Marcus Holton, Allen, all showed up on special teams there, so that's good. And then a guy that we said might have to play some special teams this year, Snell, in on 1-2. So that's good to see there.
And he goes from the safety spot. Yeah, I wish how many snaps did Cameron Kelly officially log? I mean, he played in dime early, which is interesting. They brought in him to play a deeper safety, and then I think Davis rolled down, I think, to a dime spot. I'll have to check. How many snaps did he log? 20
on the nose and only 3 special team spots. Wouldn't you want to see him a little bit more in special teams?
Yeah, I just want to see him more in general. So, yeah, it's just I still think he's going to make it.
Do you read anything into that?
I mean, again, he lost some snaps because they wanted Hilton at free safety, and he was playing the opposite Dangerfield for a decent chunk of, I think, even in the second half. I don't know. I still think Kelly's played well. I still like his chances to make it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not going to be changing my safeties this week as well too. So I guess really the only question when it comes to my 53 right now, I still don't think Holton has done enough to supplant Switzer. Or Eli Rogers at this point, and
and neither is Spencer in your mind.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to have any changes. I mean, I might change it up just to change it up. I don't know. Maybe I make some people mad and throw Gilbert off and put carry a fourth running back in Trey Edmonds. But really, I mean I think that might be the only potential change that I can make at this time, right?
Yeah, I think our rushes are pretty similar. I'm obviously going to take off Scotland Williamson. I said if he didn't play against the Chiefs, I was going to remove him. So at least Gentry's going to go on there or potential free agent ad. But yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of change in terms of that. But obviously maybe got a little more clarity as the backup running back spot and seeing some of these receivers play well. I thought there was some impressive progression from the guys that we already know are going to make the roster.
All right, special teams we just kind of covered. They did have another successful night, really, for not so much for Berryman, right? And
neither punter was particularly good.
Neither punter was great. What did you think about the field goals?
Was there just the one?
Yeah, Wright had one from 46. I wish they would have thrown Boswell out there for that one.
Yeah. Well, he got 2 extra points in, I guess. That's how they split it up. Yeah, I mean, Wright's an accurate kicker. Just the leg strength is not there. So that's the issue there.
All right, shall we? I think we got a guest today.
Yeah, we have Dr. Melanie Friedlander. I guess we can just put it right now. I guess it's probably the best place to put this interview. But, yeah, Dr. Mel is going to give us some injury information on Ola Adeni. We'll talk about him a little bit later then, of course, with Dr. Mel. So let's get to our interview with Dr. Melanie Friedlander.
Okay, welcome back. And as promised, we have the great Dr. Melanie Friedlander on the show. You should be following, if not already, you should be following Melanie on Twitter at Girl Surgeon. She's been a contributor for Steelers Depot for a number of years now, and especially when it comes to the injuries and portion of what we deal with on sometimes unfortunately on a weekly basis. But with that, Melanie is a surgeon in Torrance, California. She works for South Bay Surgeons, and I think as of right now she's even on vacation, which makes it even better for her. Melanie, happy Sunday morning. How are you? Thanks for coming back on the Terrible Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm great. I'm just chilling in Hermosa Beach, and it's, we've got our morning mist clearing up soon, hopefully, and gonna get out on the beach.
Ah, fantastic. All right, well, before you do that, we unfortunately have a few injuries to cover, one on the Steelers and one on their divisional rival, the Baltimore Ravens. And we'll start first with Ola Adeni, who, it was a little bit of a surprise there coming out of the game against the Buccaneers. He was, supposedly limping the one final pass after the one final pass rush that he had in the second half of that game. It didn't look like it was going to be or anything serious, and I think Alex had even reported that he had worked some, in the next 2 practices, or at least in the next practice. And then lo and behold, we get the news on Friday. He posts on his social media accounts that he's had surgery. We didn't know what it was at the time, but Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette reported later in the day that it was a meniscus tear that Ola had repaired there. So with that, you obviously wrote about this a few years ago on SteelersDepot.com when Ben had the tear of his done. Tell us a little bit about what all that entailed, assuming it is a meniscus tear, how long he's probably going to be out, and what the kind of prognosis is on him. With, I guess we're right at about 21 days right now before the Steelers' first game of 2019.
Right. So I was happy and sad that I had a reason that I already had that article written. But the good news is, if you remember back in 2016, they had reported that Ben would be out 2 to 3 weeks and hopefully come back against the Baltimore Ravens, which is always a big game for them. And in fact, really all he missed was 2 weeks, and then he did start against the Ravens and played well. So that estimate, 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, is often accurate. So I will just say right off the bat, I think that Adeniyi will be a major factor this season, and he really shouldn't miss too much playing time. Having said that, I'm not sure we're going to see him start against the Patriots, but we'll get back to that in a minute. The meniscus is basically a cushion in the knee. So it's a crescent-shaped ring of cartilage that sits between the long bone of the thigh, the femur, and then the two bones of the lower leg, the tibia and the ulna. And the lateral side of the meniscus, the part that's to the side of the leg, is actually bigger and thicker than the medial side. And the reason for that is that the tibia bone has a bigger surface in the knee joint than the ulna. So a tear in the meniscus means that the cartilage is torn, and there's so many different ways that it can tear. You can just get the inner portion of the crescent tearing away. You can get a small tear through that inner portion. You can get a tear that goes all the way through the meniscus from the inner part of the crescent to the outer part of the crescent. So there's multiple different tears. And if you look at the article in Steelers Depot, I put pictures up of the various tears. So if you really want to geek out, you can look at those. The challenge, of course, with it being preseason and with Adeniyi not being a skill position starter, they don't really give us that information, So if it was Juju Smith-Schuster, God forbid, I'm not saying I want that, or Ben Roethlisberger, or someone who, and how the news cycle works, has impact on fantasy sports, we probably have a lot more specific information. But since it's not a starter and it's an outside linebacker, I think what Jerry Dulac reported, that it's a meniscus tear and it's 2 to 4 weeks, is really the only tidbit we're going to get from the team. So we don't know if it's medial or lateral. A lateral repair can take longer to recover from than a medial repair. And we don't know the extent of the injury. But the fact that he did post that he'll be back soon, I take that as good news. That Dulac predicted 2 to 4 weeks, I take that as good news. Now, of course, players are always going to be like, I'll be right back. And, their leg falls off on the field. I'll be right back.
Right.
Especially a young guy who's really hoping to earn a spot on the roster. Of course, it's going to be optimistic. But the surgery is usually pretty straightforward. It's almost always done arthroscopically. So we're talking 3 tiny little incisions, and they stick a telescope into the knee. And there's 2 different ways they can repair it. The more common that we see is that they just trim the torn cartilage. That you can often see with, the telescope, there's going to be a little frayed edge. And it's basically just, giving it a haircut. You trim off the frayed cartilage, smooth out the edge, and that's the whole surgery. If it's a more significant tear, then what the surgeon will do is actually put sutures in and sew the 2 edges together. That's important to do if it's a big tear, like all the way through the border of the crescent. Again, if it's just the inner border that's torn, a lot of times you'll hear that a player went in for a cleanup, and that's basically what they had done. I'm hoping it's the cleanup. I'm assuming it's the cleanup. Anything more significant would probably be closer to a 4 to 6 week recovery time.
I had just two quick questions, Dr. Mel. I saw Adeniyi he practiced in pads on Wednesday. For the final training camp practice, he was not in pads. I watched him walk down the stairs and then stand on the sideline for the entirety of practice. Are we able to learn anything about that, the fact that he did that in terms of severity, or is there no way to really know how severe it was? But the fact of that he looked fine, to let him stand for 2 hours, he walked and he moved around like normal. Is there anything to glean from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can assume that it's not a severe injury from that. If it was like a full tear through the crescent, he would probably have too much pain to be walking around comfortably and or even going back in practice. If you remember from the Miami game in 2016, which obviously none of us want to remember that game, Ben actually went back and played again. So you can run, you can play on a torn meniscus. It may be uncomfortable if the meniscal tear is not severe. So the fact that he was walking around and looking fairly comfortable, I think, argues towards the fact that it's a more minor injury. He could even play through this injury if it wasn't too severe. But the problem is you're going to have constant swelling in the knee. You're going to have constant pain in the knee, and especially that it's preseason. It makes so much more sense to just take care of it now so that he can have a full recovery and play a normal season. I mean, that's the good news about this injury is you typically do have a full recovery. It's the kind of thing that contributes to that long-term arthritis pain that so many professional athletes deal with later in life. But in the shorter term, he should be able to feel fine and play fine and not have any significant injury issues.
I know that you mentioned, Ben's injury from a couple years back and out 2 to 3 weeks. Is there any difference because of the nature of the position and the outside linebackers inherently just seem to do more cutting and change of direction stuff? Would that put Adeney at a longer timetable than Ben, or does the position really not matter?
Absolutely. I think that for a player who plays at, wide receiver, running back, outside linebacker, they're going to have a slightly longer recovery time because of what their position demands. And so that's one of the reasons I don't see him playing against the Patriots. The other thing is, let me turn it back on you and ask you guys a question. If he came into the season, finished preseason, had the preseason we expected him to have, and came into the season fully healthy, how many snaps do you think he would get on defense?
Oh, that is a $1 million question. Not a lot, depending on how this team, because this team views it in a weird way. They like Chick so much. It would maybe at best 10 snaps a game. Exactly.
And so are you really going to risk his recovery for 10 snaps on defense? Right. I don't think so. And granted, I leave it to smarter guys like you and Dave to predict, what playing time these guys are going to see. But even though he's our training camp sweetheart, realistically, he's essentially a rookie because he missed last season. And so you're not going to risk a recovery from a very straightforward injury and a very straightforward surgery just to get him out there against the Patriots, which, oh, by the way, they desperately want to win that game. So given the fact that he'll have missed training camp time, he'll not be necessarily 100% recovered. That sounds like the worst idea in the world. Again, I'm not a head coach. I don't know what his surgery looked like. Don't know what the game plan is. But just from that perspective, I can't see him playing against the Patriots. Now, could he be back for week 2 in a smaller role? Absolutely. And, maybe they start him on special teams only and see how he does. I'm not sure. Again, I leave it to you football geniuses to determine that. But I think that week 2 or week 3 is probably going to be way more realistic for him.
Do we, trying to put the timeline together here of when the injury happened? Do we think possibly that this happened during the later stages of the time that he was in that Buccaneers game? Because Alex, you didn't see anything visibly happen in the practices last week leading up to the game with Adeney, right? He did reportedly go to the blue tent after that last pass rush that he had, which I put a slow-mo up on my Twitter feed of that the other day before the game of that. He goes out of frame so quick, though, it doesn't seem, you can't tell whether or not he twisted a knee, but I think it was after that final pass rush that he sort of limped off the field, and he wasn't on the punt coverage team after that. And then I think after that is when he was in the in the blue tent as well too. So do we think that it possibly happened during the Buccaneers game, and the fact that he practiced since would even give one more cause to speculate that it's more of a minor tear than a major tear?
100% agree on that. And unfortunately, you can't really see much on the film to tell you if that in fact was when the injury occurred. Obviously, when the knee bends to the side laterally and rotates, that's where you get the medial meniscus. When the leg bends inward, that's where you get the lateral meniscus tear. You can't tell anything from the video. But, since it's speculation Sunday, here's what I would think. He probably got the injury in the Bucs game, was evaluated in the tent. The clinical tests that they do to determine if it's a meniscal tear were not diagnostic, which they're not always with a smaller tear. And so he was probably, not suspected to have a meniscal tear. And so they didn't get an MRI at that point. And I would guess that when he went back to practice, it probably started becoming more of a nagging pain. And that's when they went and got the MRI and made the diagnosis. That would be my best guess.
And finally,
and again, that also argues towards it being a lesser injury, which of course we all want to think that.
Right. Longest term, 6 weeks from now, would you say would be, based on what we think we know, would you say the longest time he would be sidelined is 6 weeks from now, which would be after the third week of the regular season?
I think that's a safe guess for worst case scenario. And then the big issue is, once he returns to practice, how soon do the Steelers let him play after that? And that just is going to be an issue of more of his lack of experience in being essentially a rookie, even though he's not, than anything else.
So in your opinion, there would be absolutely, from what you know right now, there'd be no reason to have him on the initial 53 with the idea to put him on IR with designated to return, because he would have to miss the first 8 weeks of the season if that happened.
I 100% agree with you on that. I wouldn't waste the IR spot on him because his recovery should be fast. And I think a true worst case scenario, you'll see him playing in games in October. I mean, I would expect he'll be back in September, but I think a worst case scenario, getting him practice time and getting him back into the flow of the game, October would be your worst case scenario. And so you really don't want to waste, an IR DTR position on a player who's going to be back so soon, because you might need it for someone else later.
I agree. All right, now moving forward, Ravens had a key loss this past week. They announced that Tavon Young, slot cornerback mostly, I think, with them, might have to have neck surgery there. What do you know about that, and what are you hearing? What is your prognosis?
So there's not a lot of information out on that injury either. All we know is from Harbaugh's press conference, where he said that it's a more serious situation than they originally anticipated, and it's a disc issue. Now, I saw a report yesterday that he's actually getting additional opinions from other doctors and weighing his options, thinking that he may actually try and play this season. And I think that's a terrible idea. Again, I'm not his doctor. I haven't seen his medical reports, but when you've got doctors recommending surgery for a neck injury and you're thinking you might just try and see how it goes and play through it, that usually causes a lot of concern. So a disc in the spine is also basically a cushion. You've got the spine is made up of obviously multiple bones that are stacked, and it's almost like an Oreo, where in between each bone you've got this layer of cushion or cartilage, which is a disc. And the spinal cord runs through the front of this column, the spinal column. So if you have a herniated disc, the disc pushes out from between the bones and can press on the spinal cord, causing pain, numbness, and weakness. So when they say it's a disc issue, usually what they mean is it's a herniated disc, so it can be pressing on the spinal cord. Now, the basic conventional wisdom is that 50% of herniated discs can get better with physical therapy, meaning that you do physical therapy, you strengthen the muscles around it, and that can relieve the pressure from the disc. The problem is that it may not make it better, in which case he spent all of this time trying to get better and he could miss even more time. And I get it. He's an extraordinarily talented player who missed all of 2017 after his ACL injury, and he's got this bright future and doesn't want to miss a whole nother season after having one good season. Like, from a player standpoint, you really sympathize with this young man. It's just brutal timing for him. Having said that, if you've got doctors recommending surgery, you probably don't want to mess with the chance that you could worsen the injury and really get some significant damage.
Fair enough. Dr. Mel, what games you going to this year?
I don't know yet. Steelers are playing at Chargers right here in Los Angeles, so I'm thinking about hitting that. Don't have tickets yet, but that's hopefully my plan. And I don't know when I'm going to get back to Pittsburgh, but I'm sure I will. Actually, I'm hoping it'll be for the playoff game.
we agree, and look, I know a lot. Boy, you got a huge fan club on Twitter, deservingly so. And for any SoCal or NoCal people that end up going to the games out west here this year that want to hook up with Mel at some point, make sure you follow her on Twitter at Girl Surgeon and stay abreast of what her plans are. She'll probably end up getting to Pittsburgh one time. She usually always does, it seems like. But Dr. Mel, we appreciate you joining us on this Sunday, and we love you, but we hope we don't have to talk too terribly much to you this season about injuries. But I have a feeling that it's going to be mixed in here and there regardless. But we appreciate you joining us this morning and filling us in on what's going on with Ola Daney and Baltimore Ravens cornerback Taven Young.
Well, as always, thanks for the opportunity. It's so much fun chatting with you guys, and likewise. I hope we don't have a single injury to talk about the rest of the season. But I'm here if you need me.
And our thanks, as always, to Dr. Melanie Friedlander for shedding some light on the Adene injury. It's basically in line with what we've thought and hoped. It's relatively minor, and if he can get back by week 2, that would be awesome. No way am I putting this guy on IR unless it's a complication or a setback. I want this guy out here and to get some snaps. I don't want to repeat of what happened last season.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we know right now, which really isn't much other than a meniscus tear that we think 2 to 4 weeks, everything's lining up to him being ready. Week 2, week 3 at the latest. So I just don't see a sense to have to play roster juggling there, and then because remember, if you're going to put him on IR with the designated to return tag, he has to be on your initial 53 right after cut down, and then that following, Tuesday or Wednesday, once you officially get into week 1, ahead of the game is when you would make the move to him to go to IR. So he could qualify for the designated to return tag. It just seems like far-fetched at this point. To me, he's going to be on your 53, and you just deal with him possibly being a week 1 inactive and go from there.
I agree. I mean, I know it's a pretty minor note for Steelers fans, but hopefully Tavon Young can get healthy. I really like Tavon Young. He's one of my favorite non-Steeler players. I like the tenacity that he plays with, so hopefully he can try to get back this year, or at least have an NFL career beyond 2019.
Huge props to Dr. Mel. Thank you. And
Yep.
As always, you should be following her on Twitter at Girl Surgeon.
Okay, Dave, let's close out the show with a couple of reader emails.
Just a couple here. Devlin Hodges from
Devlin Hodges sent this in?
No. From a Kim Chelbus here, and looks like the guy's name is Sean here. Sean from Ohio. Dave and Alex, love to show. The info is second to none. Alex, what a great job at training camp. Dave, keep interrupting like you own the effing place. I love it.
I think I interrupt you more than you interrupt me.
I'm the king. I'm the king of interrupting. I love it. I'm thinking Hodges is making the 53. I bet your house he's going to be number 2. Prove me wrong.
Oh, wow, really coming in hot there. Hey, man, I've talked up Devlin Hodges as much as anybody. He's not going to be the number 2. Can he be the number 3? Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. You guys know my stance on it, that I think you got to find a way to keep him in some capacity. But we'll see how the rest of the preseason goes. Again, no decisions have to be made today, and that's a good thing.
All right, Sean, thanks for the email there. Cody Harris writes in, hey, fellas, long-time listener, first-time writing in, recently also subscribed to the ad-free version of the site. Thanks,
Nice.
Thanks, Cody. Dave keeps digging himself into the random rabbit hole discussing, and Alex keeps feeding those rabbits, and that Dave's chasing. I'll stay subscribed. So he likes a little bit of the rabbit chasing there. Just writing in as I only got to watch the first half of the Steelers game. due to getting swapped over to the Cowgirls game on NFL Network. Yeah, I don't understand why the NFL did that. They switched us out here to a replay of the Raiders Cardinals game, so I had to instantly get on Game Pass and watch the second half via the Chiefs feed last night there. So I don't understand that. I'm in Arizona. I couldn't find anywhere to stream the damn thing. From what I saw first half, Rudolph is looking a heck of a lot more consistent than Dobbs, and wow, he's got some zip on those throws. I don't know. I mean, Rudolph, if there's one thing you wish he had, maybe was a little bit more zip on his throws, Cody, if you ask me. If Rudolph continues like this, I'm sure he locks up the number 2 spot. I know with the arrival of Hodges in a recent podcast discussion, there seems to be a lot of talk about the number 3 quarterback spot, talk about champagne problems at this point with Dobbs going into his 3rd year and still showing consistency issues. Example is somehow overthrowing a simple under route, yet next play hits a 30-plus downfield throw. Then when in red zone, manages to overthrow a receiver not even 10 yards in front of him for half or interception. If you're the Steelers coaching staff, and this same type of play continues between Rudolph and Dobbs, and Hodges manages to play like he did in week 1, as I couldn't watch him play against the Chiefs, do you keep Hodges at 3 to try to develop him and cut ties with Dobbs, whether that be through direct cut or trade if Suter pops up, or do you keep Dobbs? He can be can he become more consistent and cut ties with Hodges? Side note, I'm excited for Washington this season. Kid looks like a stud. Sorry for the long rant. I'll write in again and try to keep it shorter. Y'all have a blessed one there. Look, Cody, we covered a lot of that already. I appreciate the email there, but it's definitely not over. I don't think I'm with Alex. I mean, I think it's over technically. Even though Mike Thomas is not going to agree with us, it's going to be Rudolph as your number 2 quarterback here this year. And look, we all expected that to happen. And I think this race between Hodges and Dobbs is, I never thought we'd be talking about this at this point of the preseason, but here we are. Hodges has represented himself well. Hey, let's see how it plays out now. Hodges has got him in a position where, hey, I think he should do. I think he deserves. You know what you have in Dobbs, right? Is it safe to say that at this point you know what you have in Dobbs?
Mostly, yeah.
All right. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you let Hodges play some in this 3rd preseason game?
Yeah, I hear you. I get it. I totally get it.
I mean, and I guess what I'm saying is, sit Dobbs down for a game and then put pressure on him to play well in the finale, to play for his job in the finale. Basically, didn't he have to do that last year?
Yeah, he's accustomed to having to beat Carolina.
So I guess what I'm getting at here is I would go Roethlisberger, however long you're going to play Roethlisberger, then Rudolph for however long you want to take a look at Rudolph, and then I'd try to give Hodges in another extended look in his 3rd preseason game. A, because I think he's deserved it, and B, because I think I've got a good handle on who Joshua Dobbs is at this point.
I agree. I'd do Ben a quarter, Rudolph 1.25, Hodges 1.25. I think that gets you the game.
And then in the finale, I play all 3 of them. I start Rudolph, play him for maybe a half, and then I'd let the other 2 fight it out the rest of the way.
Yeah, it might depend on how Rudolph does. If Rudolph tears up against the Titans, then maybe I don't play Rudolph really at all in that finale and let Dobbs and Hodges just duke it out for the number 3 spot. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. We'll see what the team's approach is.
All right, Jamie Joyce writes in, big thanks. Hey, guys, no question today. I just want to take a moment to say big thanks to both of you for what you do with the podcast. I've been listening faithfully since 2015. God bless you, Jamie. I was at a sports bar tonight, wowing people with my Steelers knowledge, and I had to give you guys a lot of credit. Your show has made me love Steelers football 10 times as much as I used to. Wow, that really makes us feel good when we get something like that. The training camp weeks were great, too. I knew what to look for in the preseason. Thanks for putting in the work. Really appreciate it. Jamie, and look, that's the value, I think, too, of having Alex there doing what he does at training camp is. Look, I'd like to think that I know this team regardless, but I really have felt like I know what is coming during the preseason games, especially right out of chute, and one where you're going to see, the bottom of the end guys, thanks to what Alex does during training camp and those talks that we have in the evening. I've said this several times. The heck with the rest of you. I'm the one that benefits the most for those special edition podcasts during training camp there, because I get to take what I saw on Twitter, what I read in Alex's reports, and instantly get my questions answered through several interruptions during the special edition podcast. So yeah, no doubt, kudos to Alex on that, and thanks for the email, Jamie.
Yep, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
I think one more. Adam Bendis writes in, "Hi, Dave and Alex. Did I catch the Steelers keep their base defense out against 5 wide receiver set in the third quarter? Curious your thoughts on whether Devin Bush somehow relieves any of this."
What's the question? What was the base defense?
He says, "Did I catch the Steelers keeping their base defense out against 5 receiver?" I don't know if he means out there on the field or out against 5. I think he's saying, did they keep their base defense out on the field against 5 receivers set in the third quarter? I'll have to go back and look at that, Adam.
It probably wasn't 5 receivers. It may have been a best 11 personnel, but it may have been 12 personnel, 2 tight ends on the field that just got split out in an empty set. Casey did that a lot last year, so we'll have to go back and check. If they were in sub, they were 3-4 receivers. I'm sure the Steelers were probably going to be in sub, so it may have been multiple backs or multiple tight ends on the field. We'll have to check that.
This one's from Jim on Henry Mondo. "Hi, Dave and Alex. If they made a remake of the 1974 movie, Mel Brooks movie, Blazing Saddles, you done lost Alex there. Dave, couldn't you see Henry Mondo playing the part of Mongo?" Yeah, absolutely. I've tried to throw that at Alex, I think, once or twice during these podcasts, and it went right over his head. Mondo, just a pawn in the game of life. Alex wouldn't have a clue as to what you're talking about. No, he does not. Love you guys. Jim from Elizabeth Township, PA. P.S. Dave, I'm a 60-year-old truck driver with a very bad back. I had to go to part-time, so money's extremely tight. I'm trying to figure something out for you fellas. Steelers Depot is a godsend to me. Look, Jim, if you can donate, fine. If you can't, get that back better, buddy. So appreciate the email there. Chris Lookhart writes in, "Devlin Hodges. My name's Chris, and I'm a first-time emailer. First off, I would like to say thank you for what you guys do. It really makes me feel like the preseason has more meaning to myself and my brothers. Anyway, do you think that if Devlin Hodges plays well through games 2 and 3 that we could have another situation like last year, meaning if Hodges is playing the majority of the 4th game, do you think his performance could be a roster spot if he plays really well, kind of like how it happened last year for Dobbs? You absolutely should do a Sunday night podcast breaking down the game. That would be amazing." Well, not only are we doing it, Chris, but you got an email answered in it. So there you go. And I think really Alex and I have touched, it'd be overkill at this point, going over what we've already said about Devlin Hodges.
Yeah. Well, short answer, yes. To the question, can Hodges make that play the way Dobbs did last year? Yes, he can.
All right, I think that's got it, Alex. We probably have ran way long on this podcast, but Alex and I will watch the tape a few more times through. We'll be back on Tuesday to go over what we've observed, so hopefully this podcast will tide people over in the meantime. So you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Our special guest today, Dr. Melanie Friedlander. Follow her on Twitter at Girl Surgeon. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit ad-free button, upper right navigational bar for $25. You can have an annual subscription, ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. And until Tuesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.